So if you're saying, well, what if the dead come back to life? Well, then what I have to say is, if it is an observed event that the dead come back to life, well then that has to be something that occurs within nature. It is an event that may be unusual, but then that's something that has to happen rather unusually within nature. That has to be part of nature. Now if you say, do I believe that that happens? I would say no. So if I have a report that the dead come back to life, I would say it's much more likely that that's a mistaken report than that the dead have come back to life. But whether it's a mistaken report or an accurate report, that is something that has happened in the physical world. And if you start saying, well, no, you don't understand how the supernatural works. Yes, it's natural in the sense that it happens in the physical world, but that's the result of a supernatural agency reaching into the natural world. So it's the dead is coming back to life, or the sea is parting, or one end of it is tagged in nature, but then you reach out into the supernatural realm. And I say, oh, so the way it works is, it's like I've got a rope, and the rope I'm holding reaches out into the supernatural realm, like I'm holding one end of the rope, and it's just a regular rope. But the end of that other end of the rope reaches out into, say, Neverland. So I'm tugging on the rope here, and the other end is like, oh my God, I've snagged Peter Pan. I'm pulling on the rope, and Peter Pan is pulling on the other end of the rope. How the hell does that work? One end is real, it's solid, it's just a hunk of rope, and the other end is snagging Peter Pan. And you say, well, no, that's ridiculous. That doesn't make any sense. You're just kind of inventing a sort of silly scenario. And I say, well, what is the non-silly scenario? The non-silly scenario is, for instance, that Jesus ascends to heaven alive. He's living body. So here on earth, as an historical event that we're supposed to believe really happened. So he starts out alive, and he floats where? He floats up into where? The sky. Not the make-believe sky, but the real sky. So he starts going higher and higher. But heaven isn't a place up in the sky. Heaven, as we're supposed to believe, is this realm that is immaterial, timeless, spaceless, a place that has no physical location. So how does this person, Jesus, how does this body that is Jesus go there? How is that any different from the rope reaching from here to Neverland? Does the body of Jesus at some point, when he gets to the upper stratosphere, the troposphere, outer space, the Andromeda freaking galaxy, what happens to it? How does it transmute from this thing that's made of flesh and bone and hair and fingernails and kidneys and heart and toenails? What happens to it? Where does it go? Does it end up in heaven? How does that work? We're not talking now metaphors. We're talking Jesus as a physical body that we are supposed to believe ended up in this utterly immaterial, timeless, spaceless realm. And if you're saying, well, no, it was his spirit, but that's not what we're supposed to believe. We're not believing that his spirit, presumably the way your spirit ends up in heaven is you die. But Jesus supposedly didn't die. He went up to heaven alive. Alive is something that happens as a result of your breathing, your heart beating, your blood pumping through your veins. That's what it means to be alive. Spiritually alive? Hey, your spirit could be alive, your spirit could be dead. But that doesn't involve your body floating up into the sky. So what happened to his body? Where did it go? Did it end up at some point? Did he shed it? Did it come plummeting to earth like a freaking meteorite and smack into the ground? How do you account for it? How do you account for it as something other than a kind of silly metaphor? And how do you account for any of these supernatural ideas as things other than silly metaphors, other than the man on the stair who wasn't there? When you try to take a pin and stab through it and jam it down to the real world, you say, oh, but it's not like the real world, it's not physical, it's something else. But the something else that it is turns out to be not even smoke, not even air, less substantial than air. It turns out to be something that even the people who talk about it can't even really describe. It turns out to be just men on stairs who aren't really there. And all I have to say is, when you start invoking the man on the stair or anything else like it to account for things that are here in the physically real world, your rope is leading off to Neverland. And the man on the stair who wasn't there is an inadequate explanation for the guy who was shot. Go back and re-examine the scene of the crime, because you're getting nowhere with those kinds of explanations. It's just a bunch of crap.